Hey all, JTC here, and welcome back to another tier list video. Now, I did have another video planned for this week, but I was on vacation this past week, and I underestimated how tired I would be after driving in a car for 6 hours. So that video was going to be pushed out to next week, and instead we're going to be doing another tier list this week of my personal favorite maps in Vermintide. Now, obviously, I have 2,000 hours in this game. I've played through these maps a lot, and there are obviously some maps that I like more than others, and today we're going to talk about that. So, first and foremost, we have Fortunes of War. It's no secret that I love Fortunes of War. I love a challenge, I love really long maps, I love teamwork, so I think it goes without saying that I absolutely love and adore Fortunes of War. I've beaten it at least 10 times, I think, across Legend and Cataclysm, back before Winds of Magic was released and after Winds of Magic was released. I constantly play it, I love to play it, I love to help people get their portraits, and yeah, I love Fortunes of War. After that, we have Screaming Bell. Screaming Bell is... it's an okay map. It's not the best, but it's also not the worst. It's a very predictable map, which I'm not a huge fan of in Vermintide, since I like unpredictability and I like the RNG aspect of the game. And even though it takes place in a town, something I should say about me is that no matter what the video game is, FPS, strategy, horde game, first person, third person, no matter what, I love fighting in towns and cities. And even though Screaming Bell is you fighting in a town or a city, I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the map, but I definitely think there are worse maps out there, which is why I'm probably going to leave it in the good category for me personally. Now, next we have Blightreaper. Blightreaper is considered to be one of the most hated maps because of the dark section in the beginning, and I do agree that the dark section at the start sucks. However, once you actually get past the dark section, the map itself isn't bad. Yeah, it's a city, so I'm biased towards it, obviously, but the actual, art of the map of Blightreaper past the dark section is pretty damn good. I actually really enjoy the art, and I love the general feel of the map. The feel of a town who was caught in the middle of celebration and was slaughtered in the middle of it. And you really kind of get that feeling. Especially, when you're looking up and you see the fireworks going off and you realize, hey, those people are fucking dead. So yeah, I'm also going to leave Blightreaper in the good. There are better maps in my opinion, but there also are much worse maps. Next we have, what is that? We have Blood in the Darkness. I'm not a huge fan personally of grim dark and not grim dark as in the genre, but grim / dark maps. I don't really like dank dungeons personally. It's not bad, but I just definitely have more preferred maps because whenever you go into a dungeon map like that, it's just darkness, dankness, and stone. So yeah, I personally would think it's an okay map, I would say. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. Next we have Halescourge. For the most part, I'm not really a fan of the base game bosses because all of them are, for the lack of a better word, complete pushovers, and they pose absolutely no threat. The only one, in my opinion, who actually poses a little bit of a threat is Bubblebutt himself, but that's not because he actually does a lot of damage. He is very predictable, so it's very easy to avoid the damage he does, but it's because he's tanky. He's tanky compared to all of the other bosses. You can absolutely just delete Rib Spreader and Spine Mangler, but you can't absolutely delete Burble Spew. You actually have to do some damage to him, and it might take some time, especially if you have Twitch mode on and you have other things coming in to attack you. So Burble Spew can actually pose a tiny bit of a threat compared to the other bosses, but otherwise, I mean, it's a city map, and I love cities, and I love the general feel of walking through a city that has been just absolutely ravaged by the forces of chaos, and looking in the center and being like, man, that's a giant sinkhole. A lot of people died in that. It just really has this sad feeling to it. It has this, feeling of, wow, we really are in a bad situation here. We really are in trouble with the forces of chaos. And because of that, I'm going to put it in great. I really enjoy when we get Halescourge in the map rotation, and I'll never scoff at it or get upset at it. Next, we have Into the Nest. I hate Into the Nest. It's not a necessarily difficult map because, Spine Mangler is an absolute pushover of a boss, and you can just delete him in 2 seconds flat with a Bounty Hunter or really any boss killer. The two main things I hate about it are the aesthetic. I really, really don't enjoy dwarven strongholds for some reason. Even in Skyrim, I hated the Dwemer Ruins. I never enjoyed going into the Dwemer Ruins. I just feel this, for some reason, even though they have nothing in common, I just feel the same way when I get into the nest. I just feel like I'm back in the Dwemer Ruins, and I just have this constant, perpetual state of ugh whenever I'm playing the map. Plus, the spawns of this map are absolute trash, and you can absolutely die at one part and just be screwed and get to just sit there and not play for like 10 minutes as your team tries to make their way through the map because the map spawns are just so bad. So yeah, I hate Into the Nest. Get in the trash tier, buddy. But after that, we have War Camp. War Camp, I'm very indifferent about, leaning more towards don't like. It's kind of same for the same reason as Blood in the Darkness, because it really only has one single color palette, and that's gray. And, you have different versions of gray, and you might have an occasional green, but for the most part, it's just gray, and that's very not fun to look at for me, personally. It's also, once more, a very predictable map, which I'm not a huge fan of. And the boss at the end is very, very easy to kill. Not a threat whatsoever. It's just a very predictable map in general, and because it's not very pretty to look at either, I would put it in the okay tier. But after that, we have, what is this? It was just nerfed. Convocation of Decay? Yeah, Convo of Decay. I really, really liked Convo of Decay before the nerf because I enjoy a challenge. The things that I look for in a map personally, if I decide whether I like them or not, is it challenging? Is it predictable or unpredictable? And is it good to look at? And those are kind of the three ones that I go off of. The first half of the map I actually really enjoy because it's, you're underneath, what is it, a convent? A convent, or it's the Sisterhood of Shalia, which is what? A monastery? We're just going to go with the word monastery because I can't think of it off the top of my head. You're under a monastery that has been ransacked by chaos, and you're having to find what's going on. The entire premise of the map is pretty cool. I like the premise of the map. And when you're actually inside the monastery, it's pretty awesome just to like walk around and see all of the dead people. Being like, oh, wow, yeah, these people were really caught off guard. These, I think the Sisters of Shalia were also like, they're not combat people, they're healers. So it's like, wow, these people were treating wounds and when they were ambushed and slaughtered without mercy. That's pretty disgusting. These rat men and these chaos and people really suck. So I really like that aspect of the map. But like the second half of the map isn't as great when you're in the catacombs because it's the same thing with the dungeon to me. It's just really one color scheme. And, to me, once you've seen one dungeon, once you've seen one catacombs, once you've seen one graveyard, you've seen them all. So, I mean, I think I'm going to leave Convo at good because the first half of the map really balances it out for the last half of the map for me personally. But, yeah. After that, we have, what is that? Dark Omens. Dark Omens is a very bland map. Dark Omens is essentially just a map where you're supposed to, which is a map which has been a forest, and I think it's also part town, but the town's been wiped out. So it's basically just a forest that has been hit by a meteor, and you have to stop the meteor. Okay, sounds cool in theory, but when you get in there, it's literally just a forest. That's it. It's just a destroyed forest, and that by itself makes the map really sucky for me, but something that I do enjoy about Dark Omens is how unpredictable the map is. You could, get, after the first Beastman encounter, you could go to that drop-down, that first open area, and you could get a bunch of Disabler spawns and a Minotaur, and then a Horde, and then a Patrol, which makes that first area really, really spicy, and you're like, oh crap, we need to work together. But on the other hand, you could just hold W through it and absolutely nothing spawns. Same thing with at the very end of the map, the super, super open part of the map. You can either just hold W through it, or it could literally take 15 minutes to get through because you were just getting assaulted by everything. And I really, really like that in a map. I love unpredictability in maps, and I love whenever I get a map that I'm like, okay, this could either go really well, or it could go really poorly, or it could go anywhere in between. And whenever I get Dark Omens, that's what I feel. So I think I'm also going to leave Dark Omens in good, personally. I was kind of teetering on okay because I do groan whenever I get the map. But now that I think about it, I really like the unpredictability of the map, so I'm going to leave it in good. After that, we have Empire in Flames, or as everyone else in the meme community likes to call it, Empire in Frames, because it murders your frames. Empire is, once more, a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Predictable map. There's really nothing interesting that goes on. You pretty much know where all the boss spawns are. You know what's going to spawn. You know what's going to happen. And you can pretty much predict the outcome of the map before it happens. Which, brings it down for me. But it's also a town map. It's also a destroyed town map, which is even cooler to me because you can see the absolute just travesty that has happened to this town. And you also get, a little bit of sprinkle of lore once you get to the, right before the final drop down. The characters will say something along the lines of, this part of the town is strangely preserved. Might have there been some betrayal in this town? Which adds a really great sprinkle of lore that I just love. So, honestly, and now that I think about it, the end event can absolutely get really spicy. Just in general. Yeah, like you can pretty much chew through the end event if you know what you're doing, but if just like a single person makes a tiny mistake, or if you don't kill the enemies fast enough, or if you have a deed or Twitch vote activated, the end event gets pretty spicy pretty fast. So actually, I'm going to put it in great. I actually like Empire in Flames. I was planning on putting it in okay, but now that I really think about it, I'm going to put it up in great. I like Empire in Flames. Next we have Nurgloth, Enchanter's Lair. Enchanter's Lair is a gorgeous map. It is an absolutely outstanding map in the art department. It is nothing like I've ever seen in this game, and honestly, really any video game in general. Keep in mind, for those that don't know me that much, I am brand new to like the Warhammer fantasy genre. Vermintide 2 is the very first exposure I've ever had to any Warhammer game, period, end of story. And before that, the only fantasy experience I had was like Dragon Age, Inquisition, like 10 years ago, and Dark Souls. That's it. And I don't. Would you even call Dark Souls fantasy? I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a weird twist on fantasy. But anyway, Enchanter's Lair is a map that is really nothing like I've ever seen. And the first time I was walking through it, I remember at the very start, when you're knocking on the door, you're like, oh wow, this is really cool. This is really interesting. I like this. And then, when you fall down into the catacombs, you're like, it's catacombs, okay, whatever. And then when you finally get back up into the castle and you start going through it, I was just like, wow, this is really pretty. This is really, really cool. And then the boss fight at the end, absolutely fantastic. Nurgloth is by far the most difficult boss in Vermintide. It has ways to prevent you from melting the boss. It has very interesting mechanics that at first were a little frustrating to learn, but once you get used to them, they're really fun, in my opinion. And then the ads that spawn, they're constant. They're actually a threat. I don't know what to say. I love Enchanter's Lair. It's one of my favorite maps as well, right next to Fortunes of War. Next we have, this is Engines of War, right? That's Engines, that's Horn of Magnus, that's Garden of Morr. Yeah. Okay, so this is Engines of War. So, I did say that Vermintide 2 was my very, very first experience in Vermintide. Or just Warhammer Fantasy in general. I did go back after I had already had like 1,500 hours in the second game. I went back and I tried the first game, and I played through the first game. No, maybe not 1,500 hours, because I played through the first game, and I played through these three maps. Horn of Magnus, Engines of War, and Garden of Morr. I played through these three maps before we actually got them in Vermintide 2. So I experienced these maps for the very first time in Vermintide 1. I got the, original experience of these maps. And I really wasn't a huge fan of Engines of War. It was, to me, just another forest. It was just another forest. There's nothing to see but trees here, trees there. Oh, look, there's grass on the floor. Oh, wow, there's an incline. Whoa! But I really like what they did with Engines of War in this and Vermintide 2. It feels a little more alive to me. Like, it doesn't feel as dark and dingy. It actually kind of feels like a forest that's alive. I like the color palette of the map, and I also love how unpredictable the map is. That first super open area that you get can absolutely just destroy you if you're not careful. And I love that. I love that. The ending, listen, if the ending of the map had been unchanged and was still as challenging as it was on release, I would throw it right up here. Because the ending of the map really, really made it for me. The ending, the holdout for the boat, was just absolutely fantastic, and it was so challenging, and it was so much fun. But they've nerfed it. It's not as challenging as it was. The barrels event can be challenging, but it's pretty predictable. But overall, I actually do like the map, so I'm going to put it in the great section. After that, we have Festering Ground. Festering Ground, it's a very forgettable map, personally. I don't know. It's just, I'm not really a huge fan of Festering Ground, even though I feel like it's my least played map across the board, considering that it's, I don't know what to say other than it's just a very forgettable map. There's nothing really that stands out to me about it. There's nothing that's really that interesting to me about it. I don't really like it. I wouldn't put it in trash tier. It's not worthy of trash tier, but I'd put it in okay because it's just a map, you know? Like, I don't really have anything special to say about it. It's just Festering Ground. But after that, we have Athel Yenlui. Athel Yenlui, a lot of people really, really dislike for some reason, and I don't know why. It's actually a really, really cool map. And I know what people are going to say, but JTC, it's a forest and you don't like forests. That's correct. But it's an elven forest, and that is nothing. And like I said, I have never seen anything like that. So the first time I was going through the map, I was looking at these really tall trees like, holy crap, these trees are really tall. And I was like, oh, this is an elven forest. Okay, this is territory of the elves. This isn't a mundane human forest. And as I was walking through it, and, you know, eventually, as you start getting closer and closer to the end, it starts getting more and more kind of chaotic because of the magic going everywhere. And all of a sudden, you see all these things floating in air, and you see the rogue magic, and you're like, that's pretty cool. I like that. So, yeah, it's a forest map, but it's a unique forest map. And, of course, I also absolutely love the wide open section in the center, because it leads for some really, really fun situations, especially if, you know, things get out of control and you guys get separated. It's really fun. So I would put it up in great. I like Athel Yenlui. Horn of Magnus is next. Horn of Magnus was the first map that I played in Vermintide 1 when I went back and I downloaded it for the first time and I played it. And I actually really liked Horn of Magnus. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, it is literally the first map that the Ubersreich 5 or 4, doesn't matter, played together. It is literally the first map. Because after the intro cinematic, they all gather in the inn. I don't remember the inn's name off the top of my head. And then they're like, oh no, the Skaven invasion has started. We have to go warn the town immediately. So they all get their weapons and they walk out of the door. And then they start trying to head to the Horn of Magnus to warn the country that the Skaven are here. And as they progress through the path, they're like, damn it, we're too late. The guards are dead. It falls to us now. So it's really, really awesome in the sense that you're literally experiencing the Vermintide invasion for the first time. And you, along with the heroes, are getting to, you know, see the damage of the town. And you're hearing their reactions to realizing everyone's dead. It's just us. We're the only survivors. It falls to us to warn everyone else. And I think that's really, really awesome. So, which is why I would say I love Horn of Magnus. I love the map. The Fortunes of War open area is also a lot of fun and can absolutely lead to a bunch of shenanigans. Horn of Magnus is a great map. Then we have Garden of Morr. Like I said before, once you've seen one graveyard, you've seen them all. So I'm not a huge fan of Garden of Morr, but I do really like the end event. Excuse me. Even in the first Vermintide, I wasn't a huge fan of Garden of Morr, but I really, really enjoyed the ending. Event. That's what I was looking for. We're not going to talk about the fact that when I first played it in the first game, I thought we had to go down the hole, and I jumped down the hole, and I killed myself, and I wiped with bots while streaming, and everyone laughed at me, but that's besides the point. But, yeah, I do enjoy the challenge that the last event has, and the map can be decently unpredictable, but it's not, I don't know, I'm once more kind of indifferent to the map in general. So I'm kind of teetering between okay and good, but I think we're gonna leave it in okay. It's not awful. It's definitely not awful, but it's definitely not my favorite either. Fort Bacon Branch. I view Fort Bacon Branch the same way that I view Engines of War. Fort Bacon Branch is a very predictable map. It was a lot better, and I mean a lot better back when you or back before the end event was nerfed. The end event was very, very heavily overtuned, I agree, and I agree it needed a nerf, but damn, that doesn't mean that I loved playing the end event, and I loved just panicking, and, you know, like, rapidly trying to talk with my team, and trying to survive, and oh my god, here comes 20 monks, and oh god, is that an assassin over there? Oh shit, we're dying. You know, I loved it. It was a lot of fun, but now that it's been nerfed, I just honestly think it's a snooze fest, and I'm not really a huge fan of it anymore. Yeah, it's not that great. It's okay. It's okay. If they buffed the ending event again, I would really, really love it again. But right now, as it stands, it's predictable. It's super predictable, and it's a very easy map. So it's just okay to me. It's just one of those maps that I hold W through, and I don't really do anything else. But yeah. Against the Grain. Against the Grain holds a very special place in my heart, because Against the Grain was the very first Vermintide 2 map that I ever played. When I first booted up this game as a wee little bab, the first game that I quick played into was Against the Grain. And I've never actually shared this with a wider audience, but when I remember I was first playing Marcus Kruber Mercenary, obviously, when I got into an Against the Grain game. My very first game, I had just done the tutorial. No, I had done the tutorial the night before. So, fun fact, I was bored out of my skull. And this is kind of the story of how I discovered Vermintide. I follow this streamer named Brobecue. Brobecue came from Dead by Daylight. For those that don't know, I was a huge Dead by Daylight player before I played Vermintide. I have like 1,300 hours or something in Dead by Daylight. And Brobecue was at that time mainly a Dead by Daylight streamer, but he was also a variety streamer. And I don't know why I'm voice cracking so much. And he had discovered this game called Warhammer Vermintide 2. And he was playing it, and he actually shit on the game. From what I remember, he actually did not like Vermintide. He thought it was pretty bad, and he was not talking, well about it. And I was watching him play it, and I was like, this game looks interesting. And then I heard him talk bad about it, and I was like, wow, that sucks. This game looked interesting, and I clicked off. And like 2 weeks later, I was bored out of my skull, and I had a concert to see Idina Menzel live in concert. And I had only about an hour until I had to go, and I was like, you know what? I'm bored out of my skull. I want to buy a new game. And I was looking through my featured recommendations, and Vermintide popped up, Vermintide 2. And I was like, Barbecue said bad things about this game, but you know what? This game looks cool, and it has very positive reviews. So you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna buy it. So I bought the game. I let it download. I did the I went to the concert. Great concert, by the way. I had dinner, came back. I did the tutorial at like 3 a.m. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I like this. And then I went to bed. And then the next morning, I woke up and I quick played into a game as Kruber in Against the Grain. And I distinctly remember walking along past the first, what is it, wheat field opening into the first, the first like barn area. I guess it's a barn. And I remember I heard the skittering of the Chaven, and I was the skittering of the Skaven, and I was like, wait, what's that? What? What's that? Do you hear that? And all of a sudden, you know, the Skaven screamed, and then they started their ambush, and they started coming out from under the ground. And I was like, oh my god! And I was like actually scared. And I started fighting, and I was looking around, and I was like, oh my god, there's so many of them. How are we going to survive this? And I just remembered feeling this absolute panic when playing this game. And Against the Grain holds a very special place in my heart because of that. But even other than that, playing a farm map was surprisingly really fun. Just like even today, ignoring, you know, the nostalgia that I have when playing the map, I still think Against the Grain's a really cool looking map. Yeah, it's predictable, but it's still really, really cool to look at because farm maps aren't very common. I can't name any game other than Vermintide that has a legitimate farm map. And honestly, because of that, I'm gonna put it in the great category. I love Against the Grain. I love getting it. I love queuing for it. But yeah. Next we have Old Haunts. Old Haunts is really cool. I love the challenge that the final area or the final event offers. I love the challenge of the second Grim area and the area right after that drop down before you get to the gate of Castle Drakenfels. I love the challenges that those two areas present. I love the town in the beginning because rather than it being, you know, a destroyed town, it's just a quiet town. It's a strangely quiet town that everyone's gone and you don't know what happened. What happened to them? You don't know. It's just a really quiet town. And that just kind of gives you a very eerie feeling. You're not perturbed, or yeah, you would be. You're not scared. You're not terrified. You're unsettled. You're perturbed. Your curiosity is piqued. What happened to these people? Where are they? They're not dead in the street. So what happened? And because of all these things, I honestly, I love it. I love Old Haunts. It's one of my favorite maps in the game by far. Hunger in the Dark is next. Hunger in the Dark. Hunger in the Dark. Yeah, I don't like Hunger in the Dark. I don't know. It's very predictable. The darkness section in the center really just kind of throws off gameplay for me personally. The end event is, you know, one of those stereotypical stand next to the cart and escort it, but nothing interesting happens next to it. The map can get very frustrating, especially with all the narrow corridors. I don't like it. I don't like Hunger in the Dark. Next, the Pit. Woo, boy, I love the Pit. Ooh, I love the Pit. The Pit, it has very, to me, it has kind of the same vibes as Old Haunts does, but it's also absolutely massive, and I love the fact that it's so easy to get lost if you don't know where you're going. Yeah, I've played this game for 2,000 hours. I've probably played each of these maps 100 times, if not more. I know exactly how to navigate through the Pit. But there was one time where I got pushed off, after you go through the drop down in the gate, and then you go past like that guaranteed potion spawn, and then you go up to the staircases, and then you can actually go left or right, and right and dropping down is the tome. One time we got separated, and I got pushed by myself off to the left, and I was having to go to the left when you always go to the right. I was lost. With, almost 2,000 hours in this game, a guy who's played this map countless times, I got lost. And I genuinely had no idea where I was, and I genuinely had no idea how to get out of my situation or where to go. And I was like, where the hell do I go? And that was such an amazing feeling. I was like, that's so cool that after 2,000 hours and countless replaythroughs of this map, I can still get lost. And yeah, I also love the mechanic of the holdout and the board building. I love that. I love how that entire section is actually challenging, assuming you don't cheese it. It's actually pretty challenging. But yeah, I would also, honestly, I also love the Pit. Anytime I get one of these maps in love, I get really stoked. I'm like, yes! But yeah, I love Into the Pit too. Now we have Skittergate, or as we called it back in the day, Skippergate because of the skip, or as I like to call it personally, Shittergate. Skittergate is not really a fun map because, yeah, it's aesthetically really cool, and that's kind of what saves it from being put in the trash tier. Aesthetically, it's really cool. It's really interesting to see the Skittergate. It's really interesting to see how warp magic works. It's really interesting to see the Norska, village when it's winter. It's really interesting and really cool to see that. But the map is just really long. I'm voice cracking so many times today. Oh my god, let me drink some water. Hold up. Listen, I just woke up an hour ago. Give me some slack. But, yeah. What was I saying? The map is just way too long for its own good. It really feels like the map overstays its welcome. And the map in itself isn't particularly difficult. The Gatekeeper is an absolute pushover of a boss, just like Spine Mangler. And the actual final boss of Rasknit and Death Rattler, very predictable. It can be challenging if people die, but if people don't die, it's kind of brain dead easy. So yeah, I think Skittergate's just okay. Yeah, I think it's just an okay map. I groan whenever I get it, not because of I hate this map, but because of this is gonna take forever. Oh, I just wanted to play one game. Now I'm stuck here for 45 minutes. But yeah. Lastly, we have Righteous Stand. Righteous Stand is one of my favorite maps in this game because and the thing is, I can't really put my finger onto why it's one of my favorite maps. It just has this really awesome feel to it, if that makes sense. The holdout in the beginning is a lot of fun and can absolutely just cause a lot of issues if you don't work together. Yeah, the end event, that was some really loud thunder. The end event is pretty predictable, but it's also really badass when you think about it. When you think about the fact that the gods themselves are watching over the Ubersreich 5 and are, directly helping them. Because let's be real, the statue exploding and killing all of the chaos and the forces against you, that wasn't the heroes doing. The heroes had absolutely nothing to do with that. That was absolutely a god directly intervening and saving them from their certain doom. And I'm actually surprised that there are no voice lines. That after the actual explosion, I'm surprised no one talks about it, because I would have fully expected someone to mention what did that? How did that happen? Do you think Sigmar's watching over us? By Tal, was that Tal? Is Lilith watching over us? By gods, is Tzeentch in here? Is Tzeentch doing something? But they just don't say anything, which is kind of a shame, because I really think they could have had some interesting conversations about that. But yeah, I really like Righteous Stand. I'm going to put it in great. Actually, no. I love Righteous Stand. I don't think Righteous Stand is great. I think it's amazing. I love Righteous Stand. I also get really excited whenever we get Righteous Stand, just because it's also, the town feel. And yeah, that is all of my, that is all the maps ranked, my favorite maps. So yep, thank you everyone so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe for more Vermintide content in the future. See y'all next time!